Join Safe Community Call number 5, the first of 2023. Really happy to have you here. I'm Jorge, the growth lead here at the Safe Project, and really excited for the two topics that we have for the day. The first one being Safe DAO and Safe Governance, where Theo, our DAO Coordination Lead, will walk us through what's been happening on the forums in case you haven't had a chance to follow along. And then secondly, Safe Co-Founder Richard Meissner will join to talk about the future of the Safe contracts and what the future of Safe as at the technical level might look like. So please have your questions ready. If you would like to answer or ask questions in the chat or the Q&A, please just feel free to add them as we go along. If not, the Q&A section will be open at the end of the call. So with that, Theo, please take it away.
Thanks, Jorge, and happy New Year from myself as well. So for Safe DAO, we had SCP-3 passing over the holidays, and SCP-3 passed with option 3, which was the option that included milestones A, B, C, D, and E. And I'll go into that in just a second, but for context, SCP-3 was our third proposal, which followed SCP-2 about enabling transferability, which was voted down. And our third proposal now served as a signal. What should happen next before we vote on enabling transferability again? So the option 3 that was the most voted on included these 5 milestones you can see on the shared screen. And the first milestone, claim period has passed, is already achieved in that sense, as the claiming period has ended on December 27th. The following 3 milestones, B, C, and D, are currently in the box. The constitution proposal is on the forum already. Governance framework has been discussed and written in a couple of places, and there's a proposal to follow. And a resource allocation framework can be seen as the OBRA proposal that is already live on the forum, posted by 1KX, Peter from 1KX. The last milestone, a proposal discussing token utility, has not really been started yet. So that is all to come and keeping us busy over the coming months before we vote on transferability again. And what is also new on the forum, one out of many discussions, but this is just one proposal I'm going to highlight here, is what to do with unredeemed tokens from the airdrop. And this is initiated by Daniel, kickstarting a discussion since 32 million out of 50 million tokens, safe tokens, have not been claimed. And he asks, or he suggests to have a discussion what to do with these tokens. There's a caveat I have to mention here. Due to the fact that transferability is not enabled, these tokens cannot be transferred back to the treasury immediately. So the discussion about how to reuse them is more of a medium-term one. However, it's an important one, and the proposal suggests a few ideas like a proportional distribution to those who have already redeemed the airdrop, or rewarding contributions beyond the Safe ecosystem across crypto ecosystems like Ethereum core contributors, for example. It suggests to maybe not do anything with them. Comments suggest rewarding Safe usage on other chains than Ethereum. It could be a mix of all of the above and anything else that you'll bring into the discussion on the forum. So check it out on the forum. It's a phase 0 discussion happening informally right now, but a discussion we have to have. And just a related note, there have been a lot of comments made on people not realizing that the airdrop happened, they missed the deadline, and there are many different reasons for that people ended up not claiming the token. And since 32 million out of 50 have not been claimed, that is, of course, an important issue. However, it's important to say that the deadline was hard-coded into the initial airdrop, so that technically cannot be changed. But of course, Safe DAO can discuss proposals for future allocations or future proposals that involve some sort of distribution. And this proposal here is one way of starting that discussion. So that is it from the forum. And to conclude, I'll just bring this slide once again to how to follow Safe DAO, ideally enable notifications on our Safe Governance Twitter. This is really just the minimum. You'll get 4 notifications throughout the lifetime on the forum and snapshot. And discourse email summaries are also a good way to stay more engaged with the qualitative and comments on the forum. That's all from my side. And Jorge will, I think, pass over to Richard.
Yeah, nothing to add for me. Take it away, Richard.
And I'll stop sharing here. And I think Richard will continue.
Let's see how this works out. So this one, no. One second. Screen share. Cool. I hope everybody can see my screen.
We can. Yep.
So yeah, today I wanted to quickly give an overview about for the Safe contract, what's next, what are we planning there, what are we looking into, since we actually haven't touched the Safe contracts majorly in the last year. So the last version was 1.3.0, and there one of the big changes why we did this version was to improve multi-chain security or cross-chain security by introducing the chain ID, which was one of the quite necessary changes for security. All of this was discussed in the recent days, also shortly on the forum. But I wanted to summarize a little bit, what are we looking at next, right? And there's this big topic that everybody is talking about, which is account abstraction, and everybody's saying when the Safe and account abstraction, right? Which actually, what I have to say to this one is this is a very weird question, since Safe is one of the very, very earliest examples on Ethereum for account abstraction, which is the Safe in itself allows you to have alternative signing schemes, which is one of the big advantages of account abstraction, that you can choose how you want to confirm your transaction and how you want to confirm your gas payment. And even if you use the native Ethereum token to pay, right? So actually it's not, hey, when account abstraction for the Safe, it's more okay, how do we expose account abstraction to the Safe? How do we bring it to the users? Which is not necessarily a problem or a challenge to tackle in the contracts, but of the wider team, where how do we expose SDKs? How do we go ahead? But obviously, one of the things that changed in the last year was a little bit how does Ethereum think about account abstraction? And there's a big topic that is currently being talked about by many people is EIP 4337. So EIP 4337 is setting a couple of standards. One of them is really say, hey, if you want to participate in this account abstraction via EIP 4337, you have to provide 2 separate, you have to provide a verification method on your account or on your contract, and then some other method for execution, which is actually not super new. This was this has been implemented in ZK Sync. This is their native account abstraction, so there it's put really into the protocol. Why EIP 4337 is solving this by implementing this in the nodes, or in the Nethermind node specifically currently, and on a smart contract level. By implementing it in the Nethermind node, it actually has this very nice advantage that every Nethermind node that is running acts as a relayer for the for EIP 4337 accounts, which looking back into the recent year is one of the biggest problems, that how to handle relaying. It's one of the big blockers where people say, oh, I still have to have my EOA with funds. I cannot just do off-chain signing. So yeah, this is one of the big topics, which will probably also dominate at least one of the next versions of the Safes, because we want to showcase, or we want to figure out how does the Safe and EIP 4337 really work together, right? How do they interact? How do we push account abstraction forward, or make it more accessible via the Safe? And this is why one of the we want to do some smaller changes for account for the Safe contracts in the version 1.4.0. So not the big throw, but really small adjustments so that we can support EIP 4337 via modules in the Safe. There are currently some very small specifics. And obviously another big topic besides account abstraction, or which is also coming with account, or is part of account abstraction, is this multi-chain topic. Because if you really want to push full account abstraction, you have to think about, okay, if your account is a smart contract, how does it behave on different chains? Where we also want to do some small adjustments to just give more possibilities to evaluate more ways. This is not part of, to be completely correct, it's not part of the core contract, but rather of the factory that creates the proxies for these contracts. So this is quite technical, but actually there is a discourse for, like on our forum, we have the 1.4.0 contracts being discussed. So yeah, any comments, any questions, drop by there and leave some, like, so that we can respond to that and maybe get some ideas out. But actually, as said, right, like this is just a very small stepping stone, and this is not where we want to like stop, right? Like, so the question is what happens to version 2.0, right? Like at some point there was a forum post for 2.0, but yeah, how do we go with this? So actually there is quite some open question, right? Like how will account abstraction really manifest on Ethereum mainnet? As mentioned before, EIP 4337 is more like on top. So it's a smart contract living on the EVM. It's not really part of the protocol. So the best way to look into account abstraction right now is ZK Zinc, where it's really part of the protocol. There are a couple of other networks where this is the case too. We also have this question: what happens to multi-chain, right? Like how do we stay in this? Currently, it's quite homogeneous. Like so, basically most of the chains that we are really active on are EVM, like 100% EVM compatible, but actually looking at ZK Zinc already, it's not 100% EVM compatible. So how does it have an impact that suddenly we cannot have the same address on multiple networks? What is the UX there? How do we bring this to the user? What does it mean on the technical level for also fund recovery or when you send funds? How does it look in the very long run when we think about networks like Cosmos or like Polkadot or Solana, where it's completely different how addresses are handled? How do we want to interact with it, right? Like these are questions which need to be thought about because we don't want to come up with a V3 in 1.5 years again. And in general, we defined for the very initial version, so for 1.00, we defined some values which we focused on in this version, which were like being gas optimized, being super flexible, and there was another one, and yeah, and security, right? Yeah, and so obviously security will always be a core value, but when we say what does flexible mean, is gas optimization still the biggest or most important value? Yeah, also something that we really need to think about. And for these questions to answer them, also 1.4.0 should help us bring this forward, and also quite a lot of the user research that we will be doing with the team will be focused on this. Also there for the V2 contracts, there is a forum post, a separate one from the 1.4.0, where we appreciate any feedback, any questions, and would love some discussions. All these topics have been outlined in the forum as a little bit longer blog post that tried to summarize, okay, what have we done in the last couple of years with the versions, what versions existed, what versions do we plan, which we we labeled as a draft for the motivation and future of the safe contracts. Also there, everything is linked there. It's basically what I just presented as a very short condensed summary of what is written there. Also there, would love some feedback. The plan there is that at some point we can put this into a format that it's accessible for a wider public, so that they understand, okay, what are the considerations that have been made? What are the different contracts? Which contracts should I choose if there's a difference if you want to choose, or why should I upgrade my safe? So this should be the basis for this information. And yeah, that's it for my part.
And really quickly, I just want to say that the links that Richard just mentioned and went over will all be included in the YouTube recording upload and the mirror post that we'll send out later this week. So don't feel like you have to rush to take a picture of this QR code or figure out the URLs for the other things. If you have any questions for Richard or Theo, please drop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. In the meantime, I'll throw over the first question. This could be either Theo or Richard. Some Cantalon is asking, when Safe gives times for events or hard codes time of day into a smart contract, why do we use any local time zone like CET rather than the more universal global time of UTC?
I mean, these are probably mixed questions for smart contracts related and non-smart contract related. So actually in the smart contract, when we code times, we always use UTC timestamp, because smart contracts in itself work on UTC timestamps. Questions there would be, why do you choose not midnight? Like I think for the this question probably refers to the airdrop. So there would be the very concrete question to the airdrop. Why did we choose 10 o'clock, 27th of the UTC time zone and not 0 o'clock, right? Like because we chose the 28th for 0 o'clock. It has some impact how it is. The airdrop is officially launched by the foundation. So there are some implications there, but yeah, this is, I mean, some like we are in German time zone, so this is to some extent our home time zone. But yeah, in general, we do consider UTC as the main time zone, and it's when we hard code these things on smart contracts, it's UTC. When it comes to events, why we communicate a different time zone, I think I would give this to Jorge.
Yeah, just from my side, beyond the smart contract perspective, there is the blog post, of course, which did explicitly mention CET. And it did mention that, so it should have been obvious and you could calculate it. But of course, I understand that in a global community, we may better be off with using UTC. So I don't think the airdrop would validate the airdrop invalid. But I totally understand the frustration coming from that. So in the future, we can think about using OTC.
Great. So we have more questions related to the future of the smart contracts, but really quickly, there's another one on governance. So Theo, I'll give this one to you before we get into the contracts discussion. So someone's asking, so to be clear, there will be another proposal on when the tokens become transferable. I think that's been answered in the forum, but do you want to quickly hit that one?
Yeah, I strongly expect so, yes. So SCP3 was purely about the road to having that proposal to vote on transferability again, and surely there'll be another one. I'm absolutely sure that someone will create one at the appropriate time.
Thank you. So Richard, over to you. A couple of questions. So any updates on the public documentation draft that outlines a value proposition for each safe contract version discussed in the SAFE forum? Oh, you're on mute, Richard.
Yes. So the question here is, right, like we wrote the blog post, and the question is, how do we put it into a format that is potentially more summarized, more public, more documented? So good question. I mean, to some extent, we would hope that the forum post would provide some basis for, like, especially when it comes to a very non-technical, or like, I mean, it was requested like an ELI 5 version of it, right? Like this comes from the community. We do have Tomiva with our DevRel who joined. So we also on the technical documentation side, we will push this forward and we will revamp very likely very soon our documentation. And since it's not that it's not really available, but it's more making it more accessible, right? Like if Adam, if you have any very concrete, I mean, you posted also on the forum, right? Like this structure that you would like to see. Yeah, I think this would be part of our general when we revamp our documentation in the next couple of months. But again, if anybody from the community wants to take this on, put it into this format, I think we would be very happy to support this, answer question or answers so that anybody can like put it into the structure that is a little bit more easy to grasp for everyone.
Thanks. Good question, Adam. And now over to Thomas. Thomas is asking, is it already possible to use a SECP 256R1 signature with the safe? If yes, is there a description on how to do that?
So short answer, no. Long answer, yes. Short answer, why no? So it's not native in the safe contract, and actually even it's not super native on the whole Ethereum network, right? Like, so if you can find a couple Solidity libraries out there that allow you to do this, and actually nice timing, because like I was playing around this in the last week, because it's the SecP 200, like the R1 curve is the one that is used for WebAuthn, right? Like, so if you want to integrate anything with WebAuthn related, then you require this curve. So you would have to implement or you have to write a custom smart contract that can handle these signatures, which is for mainnet quite expensive. You would have to pay, I think, 50 to 100K per signature, at least for the base operations, if not more. But yeah, that being said, since this core contracts even now support a form of, or like you can use contract signatures there, you can just write like a mapper which maps these signatures, the R1 signatures, to as a owner, as a contract owner, and then you can use it in the safe. It's something that I'm playing around with. I could try to provide at some point a little bit more complete, like at least the example of the contract if I get around to it. But yeah, let's see. So yeah, as said, short answer, not natively long answer. There is code out there, but quite custom code.
Awesome. Keel is jumping in, asking, given the complexity of smart contract audits and the prevalence of other protocols having incidents, what is the process Safe V2 will undergo in order to ensure safety given the potential major upgrades? Yes.
So we will extend on what our general security guidelines are for contracts, right? Like in general, we said we have at least one audit. If it's a change that is more than just a couple lines, we should have multiple parties, like internal and external audits. And we have a bug bounty running, and we push it first into our honeypot and then push it further. But I get that, especially for V2, the question is like, okay, how does this migrate? How does it migrate back and forth? There we are looking into how to spin this up again, since also the contract fit development, we will have more of this even outside of the safe contracts. We want to start thinking about how to more motivate the development of modules. We have some, like we have guards that should be implemented. We potentially want to have different ecosystem components that make up the safe protocol. And for this, obviously, we need to find partners with which, like, bigger auditors and multiple auditors that can participate. So we also will look into something that gives us, again, formal verification, maybe not like in the past, the formal verification that was done was very manual. So we will look into a little bit more automated or repeated, like something that we can run regularly, because the first one was so manual that it was very hard to run it again, and it would have been very, very expensive to run it again. So this will be part of it, and we will look into multiple external auditors that we can then, depending on the different, also for 1.4.0, that we can start collaborating with and having additional audits. And yeah, the goal is always to have more than one external audit.
Cool. Yeah, great question, Keel. If anybody else has any questions for Richard or Theo, please drop them in. Maybe we'll give another minute or two. Okay, there's another one. This team is saying they'll bring up the question in discourse to have a little more details. But yeah, Richard, he's saying that thanks for giving more updates on the status of SCCP 256R1. He'll follow up in the forum. So yeah, that's good. All right.
Yeah, in general, also for smart contracts questions, right? Like, feel free to reach out. I try to be a little bit more active on Discord. My Discord is just quite crowded, so actually the forum might be, since it's a little bit more async, a little bit better right now. But yeah.
Yeah, and we just have a follow-up here saying good answer on reviewing, from the audits and honeypot angle, but also talking about user ability to control when they upgrade. So usability, user control, and access, I think, is a great point. Do you want to add to that, Richard, or bring it up in the forum? Essentially, should be the follow-up here.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we can give a short follow-up, since I think we have a couple more minutes, right? So yeah, in general, our also motivation from the very start is always that we do not have a centralized way to push users into updating, right? Like the biggest form how we can force currently users into updating is we deprecate support in our interface, which we try to do very sparingly. And as far as I know, or the only version that we officially have deprecated completely, like, is the 0.1.0 version. So it's a very old version. It's not like it was released before we actually launched the product officially, right? Like, so there are a couple of these out there. I mean, I ran into this issue myself just recently that it was not considered. But yeah, for these ones, it's a little bit more technical. Like we still have command line interfaces that support this, and you could try to check out one of the older desktop apps. But yeah, actually there in this regards, it's a little bit tricky because we will have to focus newer versions to improve the support there. For 1.00, this is currently, at least in the beginning, from when we launched the very new web app, it was not supported there, but there we do want to add support back. Yeah, in general, this is part of this also of our bigger endeavor, right? Like how can we build up an ecosystem where we have multiple interfaces, multiple good interfaces for the different versions, decentralized interfaces, right? Like building out this ecosystem will be a key in saying, hey, the user really has free choice because you are not locked into one specific interface, and therefore you have a motivation. Even if one specific interface stops support for a specific contract version, you can switch to another interface, hopefully always the one that is officially provided by the Safe DAO, to get support for your version. So yeah, this will still be a motivation. Right now, I know it's not the best, but our default answer is always right. Like one of the interfaces is our command line interface that you can always use for all of the versions. Yeah, I said not the best, but yeah, we will try to make sure that it's always an educated decision when people upgrade, that they know why they're upgrading and what is the benefit. And that they always have the choice, even so we might nag them a little bit to update, since normally it comes with security improvements and usability improvements. It should always be a choice to upgrade.
I think that's it for the questions. If anybody has any last minute, please get them in quickly. If not, as Richard mentioned, the conversation is ongoing on the forum, so please direct any ideas, thoughts, concerns there. That's the best format to get your questions answered. And yeah, I think we can close out. Thanks again to everybody for joining Safe Community Call number 5. As a reminder, these are happening every 2 weeks. So look out for the link for the future call and the wrap up that will be posted on our mirror, as well as the recording on YouTube. So thanks to everybody. Thank you, Theo and Richard, for joining. And yeah, hope everybody has a good rest of your week.